Stories influence, teach, and inspire us. But what about the storytellers who create them? Uncorking a Story profiles storytellers to uncover how their background and life experiences influence the stories they create. We learn what motivates them, their path to success, and what fuels them to keep creating. It all starts by asking one simple question: where does your story begin? Welcome to Uncorking a Story. Now here's your host, Mike Carlin.
Well, hello and welcome to Uncorking a Story. I'm your host, Mike Carlin, and today I'm excited to introduce you to KJ Dell'Antonia. I hope I said that right. KJ is the author of The Chicken Sisters, a New York Times bestseller, and a Reese Witherspoon book club pick. I know that name. It's a timely and humorous exploration of the same themes that she has long focused on in her journalism, which include the importance of finding joy in our families, and boy, isn't that important. The challenge of figuring out what makes us happy. There's something to talk about there. And the need to value the people in front of us more than the ones in our phones and laptops every single time. I have to say, I can't agree more. Her latest novel is In Her Boots, and it's about the gap between the adult we think we've become, the child our mother will always see, and our horrible fear that our mother is right. Maybe she is. We'll find out. Here today to talk about that book and her career as a whole is KJ Dell'Antonia. Welcome to Uncorking a Story, KJ.
Thank you so much for having me.
Well, KJ, I'm excited to talk to you because there's a lot of juicy stuff just in that intro that I want to dig into. But I'm going to ask you the question I ask everybody as we begin these conversations, which is, KJ, where does your story begin?
I have always been a writer. I wrote Trixie Belden fan fiction as a kid and Battlestar Galactica fan fiction, and it's a real pity that will never see the light of day because that was some good stuff.
Now, are we
pretty
talking
sure I might have
original?
Combined them, so that's a story, right?
Are we talking about like the original Battlestar Galactica?
Oh,
from
yes,
like
with Apollo and Athena and Starbuck.
Was it?
Yes.
Was that Dirk Benedict? Was he
It
Starbuck?
was.
Oh my
It
God!
was.
My brother and I, who was just texting me right before this, we used to watch. We ate up Battlestar Galactica. Like
Yeah,
that was my. Whenever I go through a tunnel, right? Whenever I go through a tunnel, that song goes dun 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 dun.
Oh my
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, 100%.
Right.
Love it.
Yeah. So right there with you, only with a girl detective too, because I was truly the nerdiest child on the planet. So I probably always wanted to write actual stories. But instead I went to law school because that pleased the people around me. It didn't please me. I did that for a long time, or what felt like a long time and really realistically wasn't. And then I switched into nonfiction journalism because that felt doable. It felt possible, felt learnable. I did that pretty successfully for even longer than I practiced law, I guess. And then I finally felt ready to tackle the thing I wanted to do all along, which was, writing fiction. But I guess I still haven't really, achieved that Battlestar Galactica high. So that might be coming.
I have to say, you are one of many lawyers who I've interviewed on this show who have become writers and fiction writers. But you said something interesting. You went to law school, you became a lawyer to please the people around you, not necessarily yourself. I want to dig into that a little bit because I think so many of us make those choices. I know I did. I wanted to become a therapist, and my father and woman I was dating at the time said, "I don't want you going to school for 7 more years," because I was going to get a PhD in clinical psych. And my dad's like, "You'll never make any money that way. Go into business." And I'm like, so I went into business and I was just unhappy. I mean, so unhappy. I mean, advertising is fun, but it wasn't my calling. And I job hopped for like so long. But it sounds like, you made this decision to please the people around you. Tell me more about that.
Well, same. I didn't grow up with anyone that made a living in any form of creative way, and certainly was told over and over again that was not a thing that would be possible or available. Law school, the teacher who's like, "You make great arguments, you should be a lawyer," that I should find that person and get them to never write that on anyone's paper again, because that's not really, it should be like, use Xerox really well, you should be a lawyer. Yeah, that would be even better. So it just wasn't the ways in which I tried to lawyer, which were many and varied, were none of them particularly successful for me.
I have to share. I interviewed a guy named James Cruz. This is his book here. He's a poet, and he told me, he's like, I grew up poor. So when I was in high school, I told my teacher that I was going to become a corporate lawyer because corporate lawyers make a lot of money, and she did the opposite of kind of what you're talking about. She talked him out of it. She's like, you do not have.
Her.
Yeah, it was awesome. And he's like, you know what? She did me such a favor. And now he's like a poet and teacher, still poor, but very happy. Very happy, I have to say. So we need more of those kinds of people in our life, I think.
Yeah, I mean, and there's poor and there's poor. And if you can put food on the table and have the table, and also have a life you love, you're way better off than, but on the other hand, what would our movie tropes be like without the corporate lawyer discovering that he really should value his family more than, I once watched a movie on a bus where he got turned into a cat in order to learn that lesson.
Oh my gosh. Yeah,
it was a terrible movie. I watched it entirely without sound. You didn't need it. You knew. Like,
you just knew.
You're like, yeah, look, there he's learning. Oh, look, there's it had Jennifer Garner in it. And the guy who played the cat, I guess he only had to be in the movie for like 10 seconds because then there was a cat. So maybe that's why, I forget what actor it was. Somebody really famous. I was like, who greenlighted this? But
what was that movie? Do you remember the movie with Nicolas Cage where he's like a big Wall Street guy and Don Cheadle is in it, right? So it's like a Christmas time movie. Don Cheadle plays like this angel type character.
I know what you mean, but I have not seen the movie. Yeah, so where would our movies be without this trope, right?
You need it. You need it. You need the unhappy lawyer who makes a big life change, or the businessman who's about to. So then you go into journalism. So that's kind of neat, right? So is that kind of scratching that itch that you had inside you, or no?
Yes, definitely. And that was, I the way that played out for me turned out to be the opportunity to tell a lot of real life stories that I really wanted to dig into and be told. I worked in what I would call parenting and family journalism. And that makes a lot of people think, oh, you wrote cute little essays about your family. But no, I wrote about, the need for, I wrote about the challenges of losing kids to foster care and getting them back. I wrote about the need for family leave again and again and again and again and again and then again. And it did zero good. And, I wrote about the many, many, many ways in which our politicians talk a big game about supporting families, but don't. But don't. There's a period at the end of that sentence.
Yeah.
And just, the limits. I mean, I did write a book called How to Be a Happier Parent because I think there's things that we can do, but by and large, there are limits on what we can do as individuals to fix a problem that is societal.
Yeah. It's interesting. We need licenses to drive a car. But when I had, we had 3 kids. We have 3 kids. They're triplets. So they're 20 years old.
You should have had a really big license for that. I feel like that. There should definitely be some training involved. But
there's there's premarital counseling. There is no pre-parenting counseling that you have to go through. But you're only armed with like the examples you've been given growing up, and sometimes those examples are good, sometimes they're not so good. Mm-hmm. But even when they're good, nothing prepares you for sleep deprivation like that. I mean, nothing prepares you for the stresses and the arguments in the middle of the night. So yeah, I mean, we need to do something there. But I faked my way through parenting. The first 6 months of their life, I have no fucking idea what I was doing. Just kept them alive. Really, that was the goal.
That's sufficient.
That was the goal.
I mean, think about how much more sort of mental and media real estate we dedicate to sports than we do to that.
Oh yeah.
And I love sports. Sports are great. It's just, can we have equal time for raising humans? I don't know. Just a thought.
All right.
No, actually, the answer is no, we can't. Not even in the New York Times, where sports was, while not at all as an important topic, certainly better covered and better paid than what I do.
Yeah. Well, tell me, what was this inside you? Talking about the importance of finding joy in our families. Why was that such a focus for you? Where did that come from?
That particular thing, when you get back into the question of parenting and parenting writing, was really me having talked to and interviewed and written about literally thousands of parents, and usually mothers, but often fathers as well. And just feeling this sort of whole, the emotional, the feeling around parenting at that point was very much a mommy needs wine situation. Like we need extra help to get ourselves through this. This is really hard. This is really terrible. And I wanted to write about and explore the personal reasons that we were coming up with that story, that it was really hard and terrible. Really hard, absolutely. It was the terrible part of it that I sort of wanted to challenge and talk about, how if we spent a little more time trying to figure out how to make it more bearable for us as parents, and a little less time on trying to make it perfect for our kids, which is not possible anyway, that we would do better. And I'm still like, I'm happy. I loved doing that. It was great and it was fascinating. But I, at this point, have sort of moved on to, okay, we've done all we can by ourselves. People, can you, give us maybe preschools that are affordable, and how about some, if you want us to go to work after we have those babies that you are absolutely determined that we will have, whether we want them or not, how about some daycare? Just a thought. Just throwing that out there. Anyway.
Yeah. Well, the other thing I want to talk about before we get into the book, and I promise we will, is the challenge of figuring out what makes us happy. Why is that so damn hard? I mean, I'm almost 48 years old, and it's only like in the last year that I've been able to voice to my wife the things that I need from her that will make me happy, or the things that I need in life. I don't want to put the burden on her, but the things that I need in life that are going to make me happy. And I've only had the courage to do that, after a few years of self-work. But why is that so hard?
It is amazing, isn't it? And I think the thing that fascinates me about it is that it's so hard. But for the first easily 30 plus years of our lives, we're like, oh no, I know. I would be happier if I had that house. I would be happier if I had that job. I would be happier if I had that, that person's hair. That's what I want. That's what would make me. And we're so wrong, so much of the time. So I'm fascinated by, my favorite example is that there's great research out there that says that what will make you happiest when you choose a place to live is who you live close to. The things we choose based on are location, size of dwelling. Those are not, and later people are like, no, the thing that makes me happy is that my best friend lives next door, or my brother lives right down the road, or I'm this close to this town where I know everybody. But that's not what we think. So I love that we don't get, and I don't know the answer to why we don't. I mean, most of us can't even answer the question of like what we would like for dinner tonight, which is. And we can't. We're like, I don't know.
Wow.
Maybe I want this fish dish, but then you get the fish dish and you're like, I wanted the burger.
You know what I think it is? And I think a lot of it is just our culture. Like we've been conditioned, by advertising, by marketers. And look, I spent a career doing this stuff.
You were the conditioner.
I spent I spent like 25 years of my life, like in marketing, trying to help clients make better decisions on advertising so they can manipulate us better, which is really what the job of a market researcher is. But I think we've been conditioned to like you mentioned it before, like we want that bigger house, we want that nicer car. We don't. But what we really need is connection. We need connection with other human beings, and we don't have that as much. We're on screens all the time. We think we have connection through social media. That's all lies. Not to sound as cynical, I'm really not a cynical person, but I see people's lives on social media and I'm like, you are praising your husband and I know you hate his guts, for just keep up appearances, and like people are leading false lives. But I think that's what it comes down to. We need connection, an honest, good, open connection with other people. And that's what's, I think, really missing in most of our lives.
Yeah, that usually the answer to what would make me happier is either more people that I love or more time with the people that I love. But that's just, it's never, first of all, it's, and then plus it's hard. I mean, you can't just click and get it. So,
yeah.
And we do like to click.
Yeah, it's interesting. I've got a very close family member who has cancer, and another close friend who has cancer, and both of them have just taken these like amazing trips. And I'm like, I said, this is really I told my wife, I'm like, this is really wonderful that they're doing this, they're spending this time together. And she's like, well, they've got cancer, they may as well live now. And I said, absolutely, I agree. But why do we have to wait for something this tragic to happen? Why aren't we doing this now? Why don't we just pick up and just go somewhere? But we wait for like these tragic events to happen. And then it's like almost, it's not too late, but it's like, shit, we could have been doing this for the past 25 years. Like, why aren't we doing that? Why aren't we enjoying this now? I don't know. I know we're getting off on a tangent here. But so thank you for indulging me on that. But now it's time to talk about In Her Boots, which my green screen is making this like really cool like effects happening here,
yes.
Right? So it's picking up the corks
the
and
boot
the background.
Only. Yes.
That's right. So what can you tell me about In Her Boots?
In Her Boots, I'm going to just plunge sort of right past the plot, which is intricate and detailed. And there's a lot of stuff going on with my character and her need and desire to inherit her family farm, and her discovery that she kind of has to go through her mom to get it. Her mom doesn't want her to inherit it for a variety of excellent, from her mom's point of view, reasons, but mostly wrong, because my character's been hiding herself from her mom for many years. But I'm going to sort of just leapfrog past all of that to say that I was really interested in who we present ourselves as when we present ourselves in the world. And in part by that question of social media, the same thing that you came up with, the fact that people are often presenting a false self. And I kind of started there, and give me all the books about people who are pretending to be someone that they're not on Instagram, please, because I just want that to be true. But Red is actually pretending to be someone she is, but she just can't see it. So she has written this uber popular book about being a feminist solo woman traveler, and she is an influencer, and younger women want to do what she does. They want to travel through the world independently and be brave and strong. And Red has actually done those things and written a book about it, but she is so afraid that she is not really that person, that she does it under a fake name and she hides herself. So it's almost the flip side of I'm pretending to be much better on the internet, is that she is really cool, but she just can't see it and inhabit it in her daily life. So I think that's just another different approach to the ways that we put on different masks and can't be our full selves. So.
Yeah, it's that imposter syndrome, right? Like,
yeah.
I'm not worthy of this success.
Mm-hmm.
Which, I mean, I'll be honest, I suffer from it. I think many people who like write for a living suffer to some extent, especially when you got to, write that second book after the first one does well. That's where self-doubt creeps in. But that is something that really does limit us, the imposter syndrome. I have a friend who tells me all the time, she's like, do you know how much like you've got going on in your life right now that's like you should be proud of? I'm like, yeah, but somebody's going to figure out at some point in time that I'm just faking it. And she smacks me. She's like, shut the fuck up.
Well, that's exactly it. Red has a friend that takes that role for her, and also she kind of takes that role for her friend. And everybody kind of needs to just learn to, maybe we don't want to totally think we're awesome, but it'd be nice to think, it'd be nice to at least accept the great things that we have managed to achieve.
Yeah. Well, cool. I kind of want to meet Red. I'm going to spend some time with her. This book actually literally just came to my office yesterday.
Cool.
So I'm going to spend some time with her over the weekend because she seems like a pretty interesting person. Well, what do you got coming on next? I mean, are you working on something else right now for as a follow-up to this, or?
I have finished another book, but I haven't sold it yet. So okay. I haven't tried to sell it yet. I'm literally about to try to sell it, I've got to finish some last minute tweaks by July 20th, which is but 6 short days away. Wow, that's some math. There's a specific thing I'm doing in every chapter. I think I was doing 3 chapters a day. I think I need to do 4. So
Well,
yeah,
no pressure.
no pressure. And then I hope, I'm hoping that'll be out in the world sometime next year. But all I really want to do is keep doing this. I really love creating these worlds and these people, and inhabiting them for a while, figuring out what they mean.
When you said you really want to keep doing this, I thought you meant, a podcast.
Podcasts are great.
A podcast, talking to me.
Sure. I want to do this again for the next book. Absolutely.
But it's interesting. I love the world building, part of writing, because there's so many different parts of, the writing process. There's the thinking, there's the outlining, but then when you get into it, it's almost like a drug, because you've got control over this world. And there's so few things in life that we have control over. Really. I mean, none, right? We have no control. There was that old adage, man makes plans and God laughs.
Mm-hmm.
But then there's, I think, a fair amount of truth to that. But when you're writing and you're creating a world, you can get lost in it, and you have control over it. And kind of, you have control over the characters and what happens. I mean, there's pressure there, but that's the fun part of writing for me. The selling, not so much, the publicity, and I'm, I used to say I'm a shameless self-promoter, but and I help people market for a living. I can't do it for myself. Like, I'm terrible at it, which explains my limited success as a writer. But
you do have to do it. I mean, what I always tell people is if you're not gonna sell it, who do you think is going to?
Who is, right?
And it is hard because we are all taught not to toot our own horns. But hopefully you think the thing that you're putting out in the world is the best thing you can, and people want to share that. People want to be part of it. Yeah,
I mean, if you felt strongly enough to write it, you've got to feel strongly enough to sell it as well. So I love all the books in your office. This is really cool seeing all that. And I realize that I'm not alone. I've got books all over the place here. You can't see it because I have a green screen up, but it is crazy. I have some fun questions for us. And again, I always like to say that this is about the story behind the story. So we're going to dig into your story a little bit more, getting to know you a bit. And I like to do that through pop culture. So first up is when you were growing up, what were some of your favorite TV shows?
We already did Battlestar Galactica.
That's right. We can cross that one off the list.
Also Star Trek, although I think that it was reruns by the time the original. Very much the original, Sunday nights with my dad. MASH.
Oh, I love MASH.
Yeah. Every episode. I'm in the Love Boat and Charlie's Angels. I'm totally dating myself, but those were a big deal when I was growing up to get to be allowed to stay up late enough to watch that stuff.
Oh, totally.
Was pretty darn huge. So
I always have to latch on to Love Boat because I started rewatching it during the pandemic, because what else were we doing? I mean, I was writing, I was watching TV, but Love Boat is such a great show. I mean, it's so campy and it's so cheesy, and like Dr. Bricker Me Too's half of the passengers on the Love Boat. I don't know why Charo keeps coming back, but she does. But what I love about that show is they had 3 different writers for the 3 different segments of the show. Because they had 3 different stories,
right?
Right. And you could tell, like, from the writing standpoint, I really enjoyed that.
I have never watched it from that perspective, and I would like to. I have acquaintances who did the remake of Fantasy Island, and it's just, I think it had its 2nd season just now, but it was the same thing, only.
I tell you,
only way darker.
Very dark. I watched the pilot of the new Fantasy Island. I enjoyed it. I really did enjoy it. It was good. I remember there was a movie that came out a couple of years ago that was like super, super dark called Fantasy Island. But the reboot TV show, I think it was Mr. Rourke's niece, maybe.
I know it was a female character, and she had her own love interest, and they didn't even try to address tattoo, which is Good choice. Good choice,
Yeah.
everyone.
Yeah.
That's really a piece of 70s history that should be left there.
Yeah.
But that whole like the three intertwining stories that make up the single hour of TV that was The Love Boat and Fantasy Island, and nothing else, right? What else is even like that? Nothing. And then they just changed every week. It was kind of like the CSI of bad romance.
Yeah. Yeah.
know.
But it was so good about it. So good. How about musical artists? Who did you like to listen to growing up?
I had parents with a radio and terrible taste, so we listened to the Carpenters and Barry Manilow. Yeah.
I'll say this about the Carpenters. Karen Carpenter had one of the most beautiful voices I think I've ever heard, and such a sad story.
It's a tragic story. I mean, you want to talk about not being able to live up to who you are.
Yeah.
That was a mess. So, those are very much the soundtrack for me.
I have to say, I grew up listening to like all types of music. Like my first like choice when I was a kid, like first album I ever bought was a rap album. It was Houdini Escape, followed by Run DMC Raising Hell. And then I got into heavy metal. Like I'm talking like Iron Maiden, Anthrax, Metallica, thrash metal, loved hard rock. At 48 years old, almost, my birthday's next month, I listen to like yacht rock now and like soft 70s music. And I'm wondering what happened to me. Like
my oldest kid, he had this playlist and I adopted it and have been changing it. And I was playing it for somebody in the car the other day, and it's yacht rock. And this is my oldest, he's 20, but still he made it. So yacht rock is cool now. That's my answer to you is we're all dreaming of, making love in the dunes on the Cape or whatever.
Yeah. I mean, and by the way, that song, big fan of the Pina Colada song, right? Escape.
It's quite the story.
It's quite the story. I mean, the guy responds to a personal ad.
Does he respond? No. You're right.
He responds.
Oh, that's right.
He responds. So the wife or girlfriend is the one looking for a little something on the side. And then he goes to the bar and says, "Oh, it's you." And I'm like, you put that in
not really what your reaction would be.
You put that in a real world situation. Someone's sleeping on the couch if they're even allowed to come home that night.
I'm thinking this is my basis for my next novel, and people will be like, "Why did you come up with this story?" And I'll be like, "Have you ever heard this song?" That'd be awesome.
And then, by the way, I used to vacation on the Cape every summer. There's nothing that romantic about the dunes of the Cape. Your sand is getting everywhere.
No.
I mean,
we in fact do really vacation on the Cape every summer, and I think that's why it's probably on my kids' playlist, is because the guy sitting in the restaurant playing it every year and crooning it into the microphone.
What town on the Cape do you go to?
Chatham.
That's where we go. Hardings Beach Road. We went to the same house for 23 years, and then they sold it on us. And now every year we've got to find a new place, and then that just leads to arguments. But
we stay in a hotel for less time because at some point my husband was like, "We should stay in a house," and I was like, "That would mean I had to cook and do all the garbage and all of that stuff." And I was like, "No, less time, breakfast buffet, my friend."
After 23 years of doing it, I finally admitted, I'm like, I hate staying in a house. I mean, I liked it when we had like a bunch of like multiple families going.
Yeah, that would be fun.
But it's like all it is a change of scenery. I'm still cooking.
Same work, different spot.
And then you've got to clean the hell out of it before you leave. And it's just like no, give me the Chatham Bars Inn.
That's where we stay.
I'll take 3 nights
every single year. As much Chatham Bars in as we can have.
Yeah.
That's exactly what we do. And I'm just like, I'm eating this breakfast every day, and that's it. And then every night is kind of the agony of all the restaurants are full, but that's okay. I don't even care.
I'll tell you what. How about the Yellow Umbrella Bookstore? You spent any time over there?
I have spent a lot of time there. Sure.
Yeah, hours. I did a book signing there once. 3 people showed up. I was only related to one of them. And that's a good signing. That's 2/3 of the people that you did not drag there forcibly. So the problem was it was a sunny day and nobody was in town. Everybody, because it's catch as catch can at the Cape. I mean, it could be cloudy, but Anyway, I digress. Love the Cape. Love Chatham. I'll probably get there for a long weekend this summer. I hope. How about this one? How do you feed your inner child?
How do I feed my inner child? I do a lot of goofy things. I read all the time, and that's all my inner child. That's all my actual child ever did was read. Probably the vast community of animals we have here is definitely me feeding that inner child. In fact, I have a document open on the computer right now because I have to figure out how to go pick up our next kitten. We don't need another kitten. We have 2 demanding cats and 2 demanding dogs and 2 demanding mini ponies and 12 semi-demanding chickens. Actually, chickens are really easy, and a whole lot of horses on the property who are largely not my problem because I've let that business go to someone else. But yeah, that's pretty much it, is like more animals, please.
Oh God, I think animals bring out the best in us, to be honest.
I have this fantastic dog now. I trained dogs when I was a kid, and then we got dogs when my kids were young, and they were basically feral because I couldn't train the dogs and the children, any of them actually successfully. They're all feral. But then I got a dog. I got a puppy. He's a pandemic puppy, but I was already doing it. Like it was a coincidence. But then I had all this time. He's so well. My husband's like, this is so great, and take him it's fantastic. I finally put the time. I finally have the dog of my dreams. So he's great.
That's cool. Yeah, we have 2 dogs. We had 2 dogs. Riley was a almost 16-year-old golden who had to cross over a few weeks ago, but she was the best dog I've ever had. I mean, she smelled like an autopsy for the past 3 years because her mouth was just,
Yeah, we had an old one die last Christmas, and he was, we spent, it's like, yes, sure, you pee on your bed every night because you can't hold it in, but I'm still there with you. So you're right, dogs. I know. If my child did that, I'd
no, but Riley, she was just such a love. Anyway, I keep I'm going to start crying if I think about her anymore. Okay, so let me ask you this question. How do you feel when you're staring at a blank sheet of paper? You got to write something, or a computer screen, however you write, but what does the blank page do to you?
I don't get writer's block. I can write. I'm delighted. Especially when it's a fresh new thing, and it could be anything at this point. And I'm also a very optimistic person, so I'm like, this is going to be the best thing I've ever written. It's more, I would say my problem that comes more when I'm staring at a page of stuff that I have already written that is not as good as I had hoped it would be. Yeah. So give me all the blank pages.
Yeah, there you go. Open to the possibilities of what is to come.
This is going to be the next, I don't know what, but it's going to be great.
That's right. Well, you spent some time as a lawyer, as a journalist, now a novelist. Is there any other career that you think you'd like to try if you had to?
I was going to be a pastry chef before I figured out what the idea or what the hours were. So I think
it's very, very early in the morning, right?
Yeah, and yeah, just no. So no, I think I have finally landed on the right career for me. Although I would make an excellent NPR host if anybody's listening.
Okay, there you go.
If they're looking, I'd be really good at that.
There you go. Well,
and I already am a podcaster, but I'd be really good at having a famous podcast.
What's your podcast about?
It's called #AmWriting, and it's about writing.
Oh, there you go. Yeah. There you go. Very cool.
Yeah, so there's lots of us.
Yeah. I think there's more podcasts than people at this point in time, which is kind of scary to think about. And lastly, if you had a DeLorean, you could jump in it, hit 88 miles an hour, go back in time, meet your younger self. What are some things you would tell your younger self? What kind of words of advice would you give her?
Well, I don't want to change anything because I'm happy with where I landed, and we all know the lesson with the DeLorean. You really just don't want to mess. So, but if I could just help her stay on track, I would probably say when that moment comes when you think I could learn how to do this when you're looking at writing, you're right, you can. It is a learnable skill. So keep going.
There you go. And I lied. I have one more question. Is there a story behind the tattoo on your left arm?
Not a very interesting one. It does say it is a two-headed dragon, and it says I tell stories, which I do in a variety of ways. And I think the story is just it is not a youthful transgression. It is a relatively recent thing, and it's just if you're not gonna, if not now, when? It's an if not now, when tattoo. I had always wanted one and had never done it because the little voices in my head saying, well, what if you pick the wrong thing? Or, what if your parents disapprove, which they totally do, by the way. I can't go home in a short sleeve shirt without discussing this with my parents. And I am really old to be having that conversation. Right. And yet we still do. And if my friends are around, my dad will say, I don't know why she did that. It's just like, okay.
Well, it kind of brings us full circle because it's not about pleasing the people around you. It's about doing something that makes you happy.
That's right.
So there you go. And I think I just got the title for this episode, which is probably going to be called If Not Now, When?
There you go. If not now, when? Yeah. That's, I think I actually have a bracelet that says that.
Very cool. Well, we've, of course, been talking to KJ Dell'Antonia about her new book, In Her Boots, and so much more than that. Obviously, we talked about much more than,
we had a good time.
Than just the book. If people want to connect with you, website, Instagram, social media, anything that you want to throw out there?
KJDell'Antonia.com is the website. I send out a vaguely weekly email that has something to read, something to eat, and something to listen to. And then I do a bookstagram on Instagram, and that's at KJDA. So even more books than in the email. That's probably the opposite of how it should be. The email should give you bonus stuff. All right. Marketing problems.
That's okay. You'll figure it out. It's all good. Well, this has been a fun conversation, KJ. Thank you so much for joining me today on Uncorking a Story.
Thanks for listening to Uncorking a Story. If you'd like more information about today's guest or to find out more about Mike, go to uncorkingastory.com. If you enjoyed the show, please subscribe, rate, and review us at Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Tune in every week to hear Mike Carlin uncork a new story.